So welcome to Bear Mountain. Today we're going to be talking about some successes and some failures on things that we're doing to kind of get some veg in for winter time. As you remember, back in August, we planted some what we'd hoped would have been late fall potatoes. So we'll take a look at that and see how that turned out. Plus we'll take a look at some of the fall overwintering flowers we're putting in, ranunculus and anemones, and take a look at some of the spinach and lettuce that we've recently got in, and just kind of take you on a walk through the tunnel of what is succeeding and what's kind of on its way out to be replaced by other things. So let's go for it. Okay, so this is one of the areas that I'd say is moving on to be a success. This is our fall planted spinach. These were all transplants. Now we had some of them that got a little bit nailed by slugs, and you can kind of see the thinner plants on the outside row. We had about 3 of them that kind of got hit before we could get the slug problem under control. That was just my own fault for not putting out enough, putting some bait out, when I did the transplant. So the guys kind of got nailed a little early. But some of these plants are moving along big enough that I'm going to be able to start taking some leaves off them for salad. And these were transplants that were done in late August. So what we got is a good month of growing time on them, and they're looking really pretty good. Now the straw mulch that's under it, that is a cover crop of buckwheat that was planted right around the 20th of July. And what we did is we terminated that crop by just basically pulling it down and just chop and drop would be the right way to say it. Most of this straw will probably disappear as we go through the winter time and the spinach plants get a little bigger. Over here we have lettuce transplants that we just put in a couple days ago. It was the same thing. It was another buckwheat crop that was chopped and dropped and allowed to basically dry into straw, and it's created a nice little mulch. This time I got smart. I put some Sluggo out as I planted. So they're all, looked like they made the transplant pretty good. They were transplanted about 3 days ago. So they're all looking really good. They're just in this section right here. It's about a 15-foot section. We've got approximately about 50 plants of lettuce, which should keep us going pretty good between the lettuce and the spinach. So the squash and the pumpkins are they're moving towards the end of their life cycle, and you can kind of see we have a lot of leaves that are getting, that powdery mildewy look on them. And the squash are ripening up. Our target again was to try to have these guys all ready for harvest by the end of October. And I think, if the weather holds, it's going to work out pretty good as long as we don't get a frost. So this is another look of the squash. What we did notice in the tunnel is, I don't think was too successful, was getting a butternut and a delicata. I think they just take too long for what we were doing, but we seem to have quite a few of the pumpkins, and actually what you're looking at here is the butternuts, and there was another one called Long Island cheese, which was also another long squash, and it just didn't really perform that well. But as we look further up the bed, we can see that there's quite a few more green leaf still pumpkins to grow, and the acorn squash did pretty good too. Okay, here's the massive failure. We did a video on fall planting pumpkins, really hoping that would be a successful thing. And it looked like the potatoes we were putting in were sprouting eyes, and we thought they were going to give us some plants, but once they got into the ground, they just kind of went dormant and didn't really do anything. We dug a number of them up to see what was going on, and for the most part they just sat there. They weren't doing anything. So this whole experiment for us was kind of a classic fail, and I think part of the reason is maybe there's a pre-treatment. Like potatoes have to go through kind of a colder cycle for a while and then come back out, and then that's when the trigger kind of kicks in to start growing again. But anyway, we only had one plant that germinated out of all these plants we put in, and that was pretty amazing. And that happened on both sides. We had 2 beds, and so we kind of left this bed to see what would happen, and nothing's happened. The other bed we turned over and said, well, we're not going to waste the space anymore, so we're putting anemones into there. What you see in the background here, these are the Electroculture beans. They're still going. The non-Electroculture beans, they just basically crapped out after the third harvest, and we are pulling those plants out and moving on to something else there. When you look over to this side, this is our Rocket Series Dianthus. These as perennials. We cut these down back in June, and they've really responded well to the JMS and JLF treatments. And now we got a nice fall bloom going on. These are a Perennial Dianthus, so some of these are going to be great for a vase. Now we turn back over here. These were kale plants that were all, these were from our own saved seed. It was from red Russian kale. It may not be exactly true to its original because you know, just the way seeds are, and we had two varieties of kale that were growing out there at the time, dark boar and this red Russian. So some of it is not exactly the same. Most of the plants have thrived really well, although we do have slug damage, although the leaves are still edible. And one of the things I've noticed with these warmer days in fall and the cooler nights, we're starting to get a small aphid infestation. So I'm going to be getting some insecticidal soap. That's our Jadam wetting agent, and we're going to be spraying that on these guys to kind of knock the aphids down before they get a chance to get out of control. And behind you can see that's the last of the non-Electroculture beans that we're going to be taking out. And that is interesting how those bean plants, they gave their all for 3 harvests, and then that was just about it. And then when you contrast that with, turning around here, with the Electroculture beans, which are still putting out new leaves, I'm just pretty amazed at the difference in the vigor of the plants. But again, confounding variables. We don't know exactly if Electroculture was the benefit, or it was just, you know, more better lucky than smart. Now here's an area that we are raising a small patch of ranunculus for our own personal use. And these were, they were planted basically right around the 15th of September, and today is around the 6th of October. And you can see that they're definitely coming up. And we have approximately about 45 ranunculus plants in this about 15 foot. And these were all planted in the ground. They were not pre-sprouted. The only thing we did is gave them a good soak for a couple hours to kind of plump them up. And then we planted them in the ground. And what I did is I put a light mulch of rotted hay straw over the top. Not that much that you can't see the ground underneath, but enough to kind of give some insulation to keep the soil a little cooler during the super hot days of well, I shouldn't say super hot, it's hot in the tunnel when we have nice summer days here in the September before you know, things start to cool down. So we had this period of time when the bulbs are in the ground, when we'd still be daytime temperatures in the tunnel could be 85. And what we wanted to do was make sure that the soil temperature was much cooler. It also enabled us not to have to worry too much about soil surface drying out. And since these ranunculus are very shallow rooted, they tend to be planted pretty close to the surface. And so that we avoided any problems with that. And again, you know, we have to make sure we watch for slugs and take care of that as we go. But for early October, I think these guys are right on schedule. So they're looking really pretty good. We are definitely going to be doing a 4th picking off of these beans. My last picking, I got over 6.5 pounds. That was on the 3rd picking. The 2nd picking, I got 10 pounds. And so we're already at 18 pounds with the 1st, 2nd, and what's going to be now the 4th picking. I'm guessing that we're probably going to get another 5 pounds or so out of this. So for this little 20-foot section, these guys are producing really well. All right, this area over here was where we had our other fall planted potatoes, and we had no germination on this side, so we dug them all out. I had a couple that actually rotted, which I wasn't sure, they might have been damaged before I put them in. But the vast majority of them just never even sprouted. They were just like they were dormant. So we removed them all, and then put again like a light dusting of the rotted hay straw over the top of planted anemones. And these guys are just now beginning to germinate. So if you kind of look close, you can kind of start to see, you know, the leaves, and they're looking, you know, we're getting quite a few they're the early sprouters. This is a mix of Marianne's and some Mistral varieties. So this is just to give a nice color for spring. And when we get the total bed filled out, probably in the next couple of weeks, you know, with all the germination, we should be getting a nice patch of about 100 anemone plants in here. So they'll look really good. So again, this is another view of the pumpkins, and you can see that the season-ending powdery mildew is really picking up. But if you notice that the powdery mildew is right next to the beans, and the beans are totally healthy. These beans are on the Electroculture side, and they are not getting any kind of infection from the pumpkin plants. Now that could just be the nature of things, but it's kind of interesting to note that those things are staying healthy and they're not spreading to something else. And we haven't seen it spread to anything else in the tunnel either. So I think it's probably just, you know, something a variety of pumpkins squash tend to get, and doesn't necessarily affect anything next to it. So this is it. This is a tunnel that's 80 foot long by 16 foot wide. And we've got some things that are transitioning between summer and fall. The beans are still going pretty strong. The pumpkins are finishing up. And we've got our kale crops and our spinach and our lettuce in. And very shortly I'm going to be planting some just quick turnaround radishes and things like that, just to kind of finish off on most of the like salad fixings and things that you can grow through during the winter time here. And again, we're in zone 8B in Oregon, so the tunnel is still staying pretty warm during the day, and our nighttime temps are still in the 50s, so things are still looking pretty good. And it's amazing, this is October 6th. So anyway, thanks for just kind of walking through. Again, the potato, epic fail, but everything else kind of moving up, so I feel pretty good about things. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.